All right, we're going to get started now. This is Dr. Duchamp, and this is what's called tourism is gold. So the whole premise here is that we are sometimes talking to individuals, and sometimes we are just fielding questions that have come to us from different directions about anything and everything related to tourism. So the idea is tourism entrepreneurship. So here today, we're going to talk about the possibility of somebody owning a mountain. And I know that sounds silly, but the reality is that there are people all over the world that live in very remote places and they have a hill or a mountain in their backyard. So the question becomes, what do you do with that? How can you turn that into a tourism destination? What kinds of activities can take place? And again, part of the struggle here is that a lot of this is about marketing. It's about knowing where to start. And realistically, if you have the right product, people will travel anywhere in the world to get to it. And so we'll talk about some of the possibilities. So I've prepared a couple slides with some images to help make the idea a little bit clearer. And I'm going to share my screen so that you can see it. Of course. So basically, the background here is that you have a number of different things that are out there that you can use to basically use it for tourism. And ultimately, there are a number of different options for how you can go about it. And let's talk about the basics. Pulling up the document that I want to share. Just bear with me one second. There we go. All right, so I'm going to share this document and hopefully everybody can see it. All right. So in this particular document, which hopefully everybody can see, so there's this idea of different environments. So here you have a beautiful tropical space. And in this tropical space, you have an incline. You have in the distance, you see a couple of things that look like homes. So the question becomes, what can you do with that amount of space? What can you do in terms of using it for the purpose of accommodating people? What can you do in terms of activities? And ultimately, the reality is that you can put things together and do different things for different crowds. So let's imagine that I like to use this example very often, is this idea of a blockbuster. So a blockbuster movie is a movie that is huge and is intended to appeal to a lot of different individuals. In some ways, it's a romance, so that appeals to a certain demographic of people that are interested in a romantic experience. To others, it might be an action movie. To others, it might be a thriller or a drama or a horror movie. It just depends on the blockbuster movie that is put together. And so looking at this, you have something that could mean something to different people. It could mean for a crowd that is into nature and wants to see animals, birds, for instance, this might be a place where they want to go and spend some quiet time and essentially just take in nature, keep it real simple. To others, it might be a place where they want to go on regular hikes. Every day they want to hike a different part of the mountain. And Obviously, there are some considerations there that which we'll come back to, but um, that's a particular demographic that you can go after, because there are organizations all over the world made up of hikers, and so this is something that you can market. Um, in this particular one, I probably wouldn't do it, but maybe one of the options might be paintball. I know that's maybe foreign to some of you that have never played paintball, but it's a game involving fake guns with paint pellets that come out of them. And you wear a mask, you wear gear, because when you get hit with the paint pellets, it can hurt if you don't have the right equipment on. And that is a lot of fun if you have certain environments to work in. And there's another one of these pictures that I think is a little bit better. You may have people that are artists and they'd like to sit themselves on one of these, little areas, one of these tiers, and just paint or draw, or photographers that might want to come in and take pictures like this picture. All these pictures, by the way, thanks to Unsplash. It's where I get most of my pictures, and you have some really great people that are taking these types of pictures and putting them up and making them available at no cost. So I like to support Unsplash where I can in terms of giving them praise. So this particular picture came from Maxim Shutov. Very, very neat picture. I'm going to show another example. And this one's very simple. And this is from Scott Webb. This is just a hill. Okay, now, by itself, it seems pretty boring, right? It doesn't have trees. It doesn't have tiers. It doesn't have any water source. It doesn't have any dips. It's just a hill, okay? Definitely not a mountain. But there's a whole movie about that if you've seen that. In this particular instance, I see this as like one of those perfect opportunities for either an event such as a wedding, or maybe certain activities. One thing that I haven't put in the list that you'll see at the end is races. So you have all types of races that can take place. Most people don't realize that in many parts of the United States, we use golf courses as the site for running races. In other circumstances, you could use a hill or a mountain for bike races. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with it. On this particular one, I don't see as much that can be done because there's just not a lot of complexity. Somebody could take pictures, but it would be something probably a lot like this, although you do get a really good amount of sky in this picture, so that might be very interesting for certain artists that just want to observe clouds or the sky. Now, of course, these are amazing clouds, which you're not going to get every day, so there's really no guarantee in terms of what you can offer, but something could be done with it. This is a very different type of forest, or hill or mountain, or however you want to describe it. This is by Janu Prasad, again on Unsplash. This is a very steep hill, and you can see how the trees are growing straight up, so you can tell that there's a serious incline. Now, this might be a very good option for hikers in terms of having something that they can do so that they can have a little bit more of a challenge. The previous one, there is no challenge at all. But this one might be a little bit of a challenge depending on how they can get in there. Depending on the angle, depending on the full size and scope of the mountain or the hill, you may have opportunities for camping. You may have opportunities for climbing like this. Since this is steep, there might be an opportunity to actually do some hand climbing. Now, climbing is different for different people. Some climbers climb with ropes and carabiners and all the equipment, the helmet, everything. Some climbers are more, they want to do it by themselves without any equipment. and there's so many variations. I'm not a climber, but highly encourage people to see the movie Free Solo. I think it's called Free Solo. It won many awards, and it was a very, very good movie. These types of hills could certainly be turned into destinations. These mountains could be turned into destinations. Again, it depends on the audience that you're going after. And I have one more. This one is by Robert Haverly. And what I like about this is that it's a very different kind of a scene. It's a bigger environment. There's a lot of complexity in terms of what's there. You have kind of a barren mountain, followed by a little bit of a valley, followed by another mountain. And so if you have this kind of land, which there are people all over the world that have this amount of land, and it just sits there, and it looks great, but the question becomes, what can you do with it? So in this amount of land, there's the possibility of camping, there's a possibility of hiking, there's a possibility, I know it sounds weird to say events, but what an amazing place to do a mountain bike race. Going through everywhere, and then going through the forest and up hills and around, and there might be some trails kind of tucked in around here. A running race as well would be very interesting. You can also create obstacle course races with like what's called the Tough Mudder, or I'm trying to think of the other ones, but it really is all about your imagination and your creativity. People will travel far and wide to participate in very unique competitions. They will go very far and wide in order to be able to have a unique experience. Now, granted, the world is a little strange right now. There's a lot of very tough things that are going on between unrest and pandemic and everything, for sure. But we will get back to a day when people want to travel, and they want to travel far and wide. And that's what this is about. It's about preparing for that eventuality. So you can put all the pieces together so that when people are ready, you will have a product that you can sell them. One of the areas that I didn't mention was just basic science. There are scientists all over the world, there are students all over the world that are doing research projects. And if you have the right environment, they might want to go to your place. They might want to visit your mountain, go on in that area, spend some time, do some studies. And that is very attractive to people. So that gives you a little bit of an overview. Here's the list, and I want to spend a little bit of time on this list because I want it to be very clear in terms of what the considerations are. And I didn't, like I said, I didn't put the races in there, but I think that that's also important. In all of this, depending on where you are in the world, there is liability, okay? And so you can create an experience, but how do you craft that? So if it's hiking, you can certainly give people access to your mountain. And in some parts of the world, I know that there are laws that say that you have to give people access to your land, which I still don't quite understand, but that's fine. But in most places, as I understand it, I'm looking at my land right now out the window. This is my land. This is my wife and I, it's our land. And so if somebody wanted to use it, they would have to pay us for it. And some land is not available, or you're not legally allowed to use it for certain things. Granted, that's going to be different all over the world. But if you are in a position to rent it, sell it, lease it, charge admission to your property, whether it's a hill or a mountain, then you also have the responsibility of making sure that people are reasonably safe when they come to your property. And in that case, you're going to have them sign a waiver. And a lot of the transaction is about what you're able to provide. Now, if you are in a situation where you have this mountain right in your backyard and you advertise it properly, people will come to your mountain and do any of these things. Okay, they will hike, they will camp, they will play paintball, they will do all these different types of things. Now, the reality is that it's up to you to figure out how to make that work. Okay, so I'm back with you now. So once you have the legal part out of the way, okay, you charge people a certain amount to come and maybe hike. They're going to pay a certain amount for that service. So if you are going to let them hike on your property, what is that going to look like? Are you providing them with equipment? Are you providing them with shelter? Are you providing them with a place to stay during, the weekend or a week? Is it something where you're feeding them? There's all these little details. If I owned a mountain, and maybe it was one of the more tropical ones that I showed you, I would try to create some type of accommodation where they could stay. And then part of the deal is that they come on and they spend a certain amount of time. They pay based on how long they're going to stay with you. And you give them itineraries in terms of where they can go from a hiking perspective. For instance, if they want to camp, maybe you give them the equipment. Because if people fly from one part of the world to where you are, maybe they don't want to bring tents and sleeping bags and all the other things that they need. But if you can provide that to them and you charge for it, then that's a good situation for them. If they want to do climbing, again, do you have equipment for them? Do you have the supplies that they need? And then basically the accommodations that you provide, those are basically a base camp. Those are basically, that's where they get to rest their head. If they are looking to do birding, then you are letting them know about the birds that live on your property. Or if it's animals, I mean, granted, depending on where you are in the world, hopefully you don't have bears and coyotes or any other animal that could harm them. But again, make sure that they sign that waiver. There has to be a reasonable understanding that they should be careful about certain things. If there's a cliff, you need to advise them. If there's quicksand, I don't know, I've never experienced quicksand myself, but if there are things that are dangerous, how do you protect them? How do you safeguard them? What advice can you give them on avoiding it? Part of the service that you might provide is that you are there to go with them. So you take them out for hikes. So maybe if somebody's spending a couple of weeks with you, for instance, maybe you take them for a hike every day for the first few days, and then they can go do it on their own. So you orient them to your space, to your mountain, to that area, and then you let them do it on their own. If it's science, if they're doing research, again, they might need certain things. Some of the basics that we talk about, food and beverage options, accommodations in terms of sleeping. Is there internet access? Is there good power? If you are solar powered in the middle of nowhere, great, but is that enough to power what they need? And some of these things you just have to be very upfront on so that they know what to expect. There are a lot of opportunities with these kinds of things. And what I would advise you to do is to look at what you have available, create some pictures in your head of what could be done, whether it's a race or hiking or what have you. And then think about it from a marketing perspective. Think about the groups that are out there that might be interested in your product. If you have hiking, then you want to go after the hiking groups that are all over Facebook and Meetup and Eventbrite and just all over the web. So you'd want to connect with different outdoor adventure groups around the world. If you want to create an obstacle race of some kind, then what is that going to look like? Is there going to be prize money? Are there going to be big competitors? Can you get sponsorships from businesses that you know? Again, there's a lot of different parts of this, but the reality is that there is a lot of opportunity, and it really goes back to the kind of resources that you have available so that you can put something into action. I'm going to check to see if there are any questions. No questions, which is fine. So beyond that, that is just a little snapshot. What I would encourage you to do is, if you see this and you have some questions, if you have a particular instance, if you have a specific mountain that you're thinking about, if you have some type of property, each time we do one of these Tourism is Gold talks, the idea is to either talk with an individual who has a real situation or to talk theoretically about a number of situations, which is what I did today. If you have a mountain, let me know, and I would be able to provide some specific feedback, but at least this gives you a couple things that might get your ideas flowing. And you can always contact me, either send an email to show@tourismisgold.com, or you can send an email or find me on social media at Prof Duchamp, Twitter, Instagram, etc. Thank you for watching this, and hopefully it was interesting. All right, take care. Bye-bye.